Where's the flag?
Where's the flag?
Oh, goodness. Might be upstairs. 6:30, so when he gets back, we'll get going. There he is. All right, 6:30, I'll call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Paul, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Weathersfield Select Board meeting, April 4, 2022. I have a need to take the board into executive session to discuss a legal matter. I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Under what?
It's Title I, Section 313E. It's a legal issue. Going to invite the chief.
Usually that's in the minutes.
Yes. No, you're right, John, that's fine. I'm going to invite the town manager and the chief of police. Wendy?
I'm gonna
Staying
recuse
here,
myself.
go upstairs.
Yeah, we're going to go upstairs.
You're going upstairs.
We're going to go upstairs. Yeah, you guys can stay here, and I have no problem with the cameras and video and everything staying on, because, that way everybody's here, just like you guys are here.
Well, maybe
Everybody knows nothing's
maybe they
happening.
don't wanna be on camera.
Well, I wanted to make sure they knew they are.
Maybe they don't want to.
I'm gonna need that.
My daughter that works here.
Top secret. You have to shoot both of us, right?
Yeah.
No, we're on camera. Everett Hammond, how you doing?
Did you see the old pictures out there?
No.
The old, Weathersfield Village? Shows the,
Right, and they're gonna head start on the meeting.
Executive session, somehow stuff was getting out. Remember Patrick Scanlon? Speculation was, and it's probably quite true, that he was putting a glass up to the wall and listening.
We are being recorded. Up there. Just so you're here. Oh, we're being recorded.
Well,
Just so you know.
it wasn't much of a secret, it was, geez, well over 25 years ago, but quite imaginative on his part.
Yeah.
The walls upstairs aren't very, they're pretty thin anyway.
Right below, where 106 is now, that's not the case of the bridge. That was the original bridge. All the Culvert falls and the upper
I
falls.
hate it when they start throwing out titles and numbers and.
Look down, look at the bridge, look to your right. This is Mill Street all the way down to where,
been.
Yeah, since it's been painted, it was natural last time I was down here. Looks good.
Yeah, and I believe they're doing the cabinets also, that'll be white too, so.
Doesn't look quite so dated.
No, exactly, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, they did a nice job.
They salvaged the floor, which was nice.
Yeah.
If that had been put in the right way to begin with, it wouldn't have done that.
Right.
I put down this laminate floor, and it's very good structure. If you go so far, you have to get room to move. And they didn't. But the guy did a good job of salvaging it. That had to be replaced.
Yeah, yeah.
You happen to know what that was off the top of your head? Title, blah, blah, blah?
You guys have chickens, don't you? Don't want a couple more roosters, do you?
I only have one rooster that has survived on purpose. Because he's not a jerk.
You're too jerk.
He's actually
I've
super.
been leaving them out at night, hoping that in the morning they'll be coming.
I have a male duck that's gonna be on his way out here pretty soon. No, one of our, no. I have one, he's not even a regular size, he's a bantam rooster.
We get two big ones and they beat the living crap out of the girls.
Well, especially right now. That's what we're having a problem with our male duck. He's ginormous and he's beating the crap out of the duck.
Yeah, pulls the feathers out and everything else.
It is spring.
Yep.
The next guy in.
Jason's a good guy. He
Yeah.
lives in Weathersfield now.
We're gonna hope next year you don't order quite so much mud.
I didn't.
Oh!
We didn't get as much as other towns though. I was happy with that. It was all at once.
I was surprised, one of my committee mates lives way the heck up in Granby, way up north, and so figured maybe they were still froze up. Same time we were getting it, they were getting it. She said she'd go 25 miles out of her way.
Yep.
Find a road that you could actually drive on.
Some towns only have like 4 miles of gravel and they had over half their roads closed.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
You know, in the ditching, but as long as you got frost underneath.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of neighboring towns and West Windsor didn't have they're about the same as us. It was everything at once, but it was about the same mud as normal, but it didn't happen in cycles.
Now it's looking like we're gonna go right into dust.
What's that?
It looks like now we're gonna go right into dust.
Ludlow and Cavendish had a tough time.
Yeah.
And Cornish had a horrible time. Thetford, Tunbridge, all those towns. There was pitchers up in Maine. They were using a skidder to pull their grader through the mud. The grader got stuck. They had to hire somebody with a skidder to get the grader out.
You need one of the National Guard tank retrieval units.
They had, I think it was Thetford, Tunbridge. They had their pictures of two of their trucks, right one right after the other, were both stuck in the mud, but they both had their plow fronts on still. And that's what was dug in the picture. I'm sure the frame was the whole truck was sitting in mud, but.
Do you think the ditching that we've done aided, but there were mud spots where there's never been mud?
Yeah, I think the ditching helps a lot,
Okay.
because the water table is lower if the ditches are in deep enough. And the water, when it rains, it can sheet off instead of sitting there and soaking into the ground. I think that helps.
How deep do you think the frost went in the roads?
Probably 3.5, 4 feet.
So, yeah.
Out in the field where they were doing the solar panels, it was 2.5 to 3 feet deep out there. And that was covered with snow.
Those guys
get some work done, don't they?
Yeah, they're moving.
They set in panels, yeah.
Yep. They're putting the actual panels on the post now.
They gotta fence that whole thing too, don't
Yeah,
they?
They have to because they ordered the panels that are both side, charged on both sides. I didn't really want a fence, but
Sure changed the appearance of that second, piece of land, didn't it?
yeah. It'll be worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
11,000 a year plus 10% off on electricity.
Cost them a few bucks just to prepare it. That was really bony out there and
Yep, they've been, it got 2 weeks, they've been pounding post in, had to drill. Cause there's a bunch of ledge out there, which they knew. I mean, they did all kinds of studies. I told them there was ledge, I showed them where it was. And they were surprised they hit ledge. So they had to get a drill in and drill the post holes, which takes a lot longer.
in Vermont,
Yeah.
you can almost, how deep they put the post in.
I think they're like 6 feet.
Wow.
So I just texted him, even on Rocky, and I said, I knew they were good at one point, but finally before the final. I said, how many yards you put out? That would do pretty good. Randall Hill had one bad spot, Parker Hill one spot, Rocky Hill put out maybe 6 loads. So they bad. In your own. It's not good. Well, see one, I think.
Oh.
One's good.
Extreme put on the board.
I think it does.
Yeah, yes it does, yeah.
That and good material.
Good, I think it's more the good material than the ditching. Because if you could have ditching, but you got shit for material, it's still gonna squash out. Because it's frozen, it's all that water's gonna come out.
And it doesn't, if you don't have the rock in it to hold it together, it's gonna turn to pudding.
I told you what he's gonna make, I think I told you what he was gonna do is, he did a.
3/8 stone.
Yeah, 3/8 stone, one load, 3/8, 2 loads, what he did last year, but he's gonna go 50/50 this year, and he's putting out less.
I think eventually he's gonna end up being 100% stone. Like the chip dust.
And over time, you'll be a lot less.
It'd be a lot better off.
Because he, yeah,
He's putting out, what, 3,000 yards of sand?
he only put like 2,000 out, he usually puts out 5. So he put out less than half.
Right, so you could put out 2,000 yards of good material for your road, or you could put out 2,000 yards of crap for your road.
So when I was there, I was always like, they cheap wide and something. I always see sieves. I wasn't look at it, not just see the sieves, you look at it, it's like freezing up or bumpy. Well, just
Because it doesn't have any,
quality
if
stuff
it doesn't have any
that's
stone in it, but the thing about the chip stone is the stone's fractured, so it binds. Usually winter sand isn't fractured, it's round.
some chips on, might be natural, I don't know what it's got.
Usually the round pebbly stuff just blows off. It doesn't really stick to the road. And it's not good structure. Cutting trees helps too. You can get it out open to the sun.
No, it definitely helps.
Right now Baltimore Road and Bowen Hill Road are wet. There's a few wet spots on other ones, but Baltimore Road's gonna be the last one to thaw out. I graded probably 3/4 of Golden Ridge, or more, 80% of Golden Ridge, I actually graded it today. Dug right in and dug right in. On here. So if anybody asks, I just raked it out. It's not technically graded yet.
So that one road, remember the A.S. Clark, they did those 2 box culverts.
Baltimore Road.
And they bought, yeah, Baltimore Road, but the other one, he said, what's the Thrasher Road or something?
Tarbell Hill.
Tarbell, no.
That's the one,
It does all that.
that's the one Irene wiped out, and then the beaver dam went up in Cavendish. The beaver dam collapsed and it washed out the road. That road's washed out a lot of times.
It was crushed, yeah, crushed 3/8.
Yeah, fractured stone is good.
Yeah, because it's
Back in the-
less chance of
back in the
bouncing off, and sliding
70s.
off the road too.
The road washed out back in the 70s, and if you walk up there now, it used to cross the road, it used to meander down the hill.
Yeah.
They pushed it all to one side, and then halfway down, they pushed it over to the other side, and you can see prime examples of why not to do that. When you first go up Tarbell Hill, you look on your right, and that whole bank it's never had a brook at the base of it. Like, so it's just all soft soil, so all the trees are falling over, it's eating the whole bank, it's all eroding.
But all the work they did, is it held up right, it worked all right?
It's held up, but it just, I kinda wish they had kept it meandering down through there, because then you wouldn't have all the
No, no,
wash.
with the stuff that Hayes Park did.
Yeah, yeah.
No, no issues on that?
Nope.
Yeah. Because that was more customization of each one. You know, get it in and be kind of safe about it. I mean, if you just have, so that's what I thought the best thing was, let drop it in the handicap right there, with the concrete, it's not gonna keep washing it. One that's kind of unique, which I know it's, I haven't been out and look at it, if you go on Weathersfield Center Road toward the golf course down Steep Hill, you'll see the one on the right-hand side
Oh,
there.
Tally Street.
Yeah,
down Brook
that
Road.
sucker must be, it comes in,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? But it looks like it works good though.
Yeah.
It's like funneling it in, and those are the old time guys that did a lot of that good work. You don't seem to have that anymore, you know, that, in their own crew. And Rocky, that guy, old guy, that did a lot of that stuff.
I remember all the
Some
stone
of it
work.
was great, some of it was great blades and concrete, and held up for a number of years.
The old timers used to build stone retaining walls all over Smithfield. They were
Oh,
all
yeah,
drywall.
You're right, there's one
Beautiful
guy.
walls. Right behind the Village Pizza.
Yeah.
That whole thing is all stone.
And a lot of it are like, I don't know what that, a lot of it natural round rock too.
Now, these are all flat.
Okay, that was flat. But there's one guy's name I've heard, like,
I can't tell you what it is, but
well, Joe, is Joe your uncle?
Joe Trombley?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, he would know, he's thrown a name out there, and I've heard that name in town before.
If you didn't know, you'd make it up.
What's that?
If you didn't know, you'd make it up.
Probably, no Joe, he just rattles on and on to me.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. Good neighbors to have. Can't do much better than knowing it anymore. But that's all right, you know, they keep buying things.
What kind of ducks are they, pekin?
Yeah, I've got Peking, I've got mallards, and I've got cactus. But my Pekins are the ones that are, it's
They're
gonna
big
be a
to begin
Peking
with.
duck pretty soon. Down there.
We had banties for a while, and and pecans. The pecans don't usually sit on eggs either, they stomp them. But so the banty actually raised the ducklings until they were bigger than she was.
Well, my lone turkey sits on the egg. She wants to sit on eggs, so she sits on everybody else's eggs. She
Unfertilized egg. Your turkey egg's pretty big.
they're about the size of a duck egg. She sits on not fertilized eggs, but then she'll find a pile of the chicken's eggs
Sits on
or the
those.
duck eggs, and she'll sit on those. Yeah.
Some birds are really broody. Our hens could care less.
Some of mine are, I only have a couple of broody ones. Only a couple. The turkey, for whatever reason, she loves to sit on them, so.
Our two roosters were not supposed to be roosters. Patty went down to Wellwood when they had the fancy bird thing last spring and bought two. I don't remember what they were supposed to be, but they weren't supposed to be roosters.
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
That happens once in a while anyway, but this was 2 for 2.
They've got the package before. They should have it out in the last meetings.
Come back, right?
Whole herd of them.
Whole herd of them. All right, we're back. Next item on the agenda is comments, from the, board, town
what-
manager,
Do you need to take us out of?
executive session. Yeah, I'll declare us out of executive session. Thank you, Paul. Comments from the board, town manager, and citizens not on the topic, not on the agenda. I'll start with this with, a couple things. I'm gonna be changing this back to just comments from citizens. And I'm gonna do that for two reasons. Number one, the town manager can make any comments he wants to make under his town manager's report or update. So he doesn't need to take up time here with that. We could just keep it where it belongs. And comments from the board, if a board member comes in here and has an announcement, I've seen it before, like recognizing the highway department. Paul, you did that last week. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. A brief statement and announcement. Maybe it's somebody that's lived in town for a long time, served the town, and they passed, and we want to make an announcement. Something like that, from a board member. That can still happen here. But if the board member has, something that's more of a probably ought to be a discussion topic, we just want to save that for any other business later in the meeting. So basically just housekeeping, keep it where it belongs. And then this section 3 will be for citizens, comments and our legislative representatives. So with that, knowing that John is here and he had called me and asked for time to speak to the board, I'm going to recognize him first. John Harrison, our legislative representative in Montpelier.
Thank you. I talked to Brandon, I talked to Mike about our CLA number and where it was going and whether or not we were looking like we were in line to get a reappraisal anytime soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody has the packet.
There's a 4-sheet handout that I made up, and the first sheet, which is handwritten, the top part is how the municipal, what effect that the CLA has on municipal, and if FMY is fair, FMV is fair market value. So if you get a $200,000 house, and I use the 4% CLA, if we're off by 4%, so you're on for 192. So the tax rate would be, on the 192 would be $1.25, and on a fair market value would be $1.20. It doesn't matter, it could be 50% off. Your tax rate would be much higher, but the amount raised by taxes at a municipal level would be the same. So it's just a math exercise, because you only have to raise so much money to run the town. I thought for years that the school worked under a similar system. It does not. So as you go down to school, the 192, which is adjusted for 4%, if the tax rate, and this is the beginning number the state gives you, of $1.50, so your taxes would be $2,880 for school tax. When you go to 104%, 4% off, the tax rate becomes $1.56, and your school tax becomes $2,995. So by having the CLA off only 4%, you're paying $115 more in school taxes than if you had 100% CLA. Okay? That was a very simplified version. The number of 115 is off by a little bit, but it gets really complicated if you go through the whole formula. The spreadsheet for the tax computation, which is the second page, the green highlight, this gives you some idea how complicated it is when they actually compute the tax rate, the school tax rate. And the green highlight is mine, and it gives you where the CLA has been since fiscal year 2019. So the question is, okay, I'm paying $115 more, so why am I paying $115 and where does that money go? There's only a handful of towns in Vermont that are very property rich. Stowe, there's some others, that I think you can count on one hand, where the property taxes actually generate enough to pay for their school, okay? So we are contributing $115 this person, is contributing $115 more. So where does the extra money come from? And that's the other two pages. The pool of money that the state generates to help pay for education comes from, it's down near the bottom of the circles, 100% of the sales and use tax goes into education, 33% of the purchase and use tax on vehicles, 25% of the rooms and meals tax, and 100% of the lottery. All goes into a pot that towns draw from to pay for their education, okay? So by paying that extra $115, that's less that we dip into that pool of money. So we are helping the state out, so to speak, by not having 100% CLA. Does that make any sense at all? I got to admit that the way education is paid for in Vermont is really difficult to understand and bring in. It all goes back to the equity issue, back when Act 46 was put in, and the Brigham decision that because before that, we did pay just about pretty near all the property tax went to the schools, and none of these other sources were available. There are other sources of income for the school. They get, there's small school grants, there's special ed money, so it's not as simple as what I've described today. What's coming down the pike though, and it's coming really soon, probably it'll be implemented over 5 years. Weathersfield School has about 220 pupils that sit there, okay? But they're counted, when they get done counting, there could be counting 230 kids. So these aren't real students, they're just the way the state calculates it. If the student is eligible for free or reduced lunch, right now they're counted as 1.25 students. If they are an English language learner, they get a multiplier. Rural schools get a multiplier. All these numbers are being changed substantially because the Brigham decision is not being fulfilled to its fullest. So there's still schools, and they aren't all up in the Northeast Kingdom either, are not generating enough money to run their schools as evenly as maybe, I hate to pick on, no, I don't hate to pick on Chittenden County. There's many schools in Chittenden County that really got money and can offer services that a lot of these schools can't. And in the towns that are property poor, they're having trouble passing bonds. There's buildings are starting to get decrepit, and they just, I'll give you an example. There's a school that's in the Northeast Kingdom, it's up in Kingdom North, that the multi-purpose room is a steel building with no insulation. That's all they got, and they can't afford anything else. Their teacher salaries are lower because they just can't afford to pay what others pay. So consequently, they get first year college students or graduates, and then they leave, go somewhere else. So anyway, as that money shifts, it should create more equity across the state. Why do we have to do that? Because it's in the Constitution for the state. It's not open for discussion, but I strongly urge the board to move ahead to see it with it reappraised.
Any comments, questions for Mr. Harrison? Dave?
I see, John, that we are in fact lowering with the CLA, and it's news to me to see that it lowered, that you have that figure. But I would urge you to look at a report that I looked at last year, where the state tax department prints out all the town's CLAs. It's very enlightening to me. And what it told me was, for instance, Killington, Woodstock, Ludlow, there were a whole host of towns that I wrote down that had similar CLAs as Weathersfield. It was like 93.1, it was last year's. But their tax rate was significantly lower than ours, so, the state tax. So what that told me was that I want to learn more about what makes up the formula that it factors into the financial part of the state aid number, because I think a very weighted number in that formula is the per pupil cost that the towns choose to spend on their schools. We all know from last year's that Weathersfield is like number 6 in the whole state. It's higher than that? Okay. So the CLA, or whatever, however you want to phrase the property values of towns, and I know that Heartland just had a reappraisal 2 or 3 years ago because I was part of grieving an assessment up there. It wouldn't surprise me a bit whether they're out of whack right now again, because of the way things have evolved over the last 2 years. This is what I think. I really do think that if we, and we'll probably have an appraisal, I'm not sure when, but the higher grand list values, let's say that Weathersfield increases its grand list by 30%. Probably not gonna be a shock to anybody, maybe more than that, I don't know. When that's tabulated up at the state though, when they start distributing funds for education, they'll say, well, we think you're like really rich right now, because you're like Dorset and Woodstock and your per pupil cost is like way up there anyway, so we're not gonna give you any state aid. So this, or very little, because they don't do Ludlow, all those other towns, they lower their state aid per pupil. So it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're gonna pay more in property taxes, and I get the fact that we lower the rates because our grand list goes up. But we're gonna lose money on another hand. That's what I think's gonna happen. So I think what we should do is here, I think that we should have a talk with Nate Stoddard, Bob Thomas. I know I had a long talk with Nate. He told me that land values in Weathersfield, it was a couple of months ago, so, but it's fairly recent, are not that far out of whack with what their sales. The houses can be, no question about it. But he cited off 10 pieces of land that sold that were not that far out. So here's another way I'd like everybody to think about measuring this. We have 1,649 parcels in Weathersfield, something like that, because I remember listening to these proposals, just under 1,700. There's only about 50 that have land only, so a lot of them have either buildings on them. In order to move the CLA, any amount of points, a measurable amount of homes need to be sold, and I mean closed. Just think about it for a minute. If only, so just do the math backwards. We have 1,650. Let's say we had 1,000. 100 of them would have to sell and close in 1 year for a 10% change. If you look on today's websites, there's 8 properties for sale in Weathersfield. That is 0.05% of the town. That's how small of a number it is that's actually for sale. So they'd have to close, and then our listers or Nate would have to furnish that. I hope they're not doing this, but because it might. Yeah, I hope the state's not taking like 10 closings or 50 closings in Weathersfield and basing this information on only that amount compared to what's in the town as a whole, because that would be unfair. I think that, John, you might know this, I don't know. We've been told before, and maybe, I don't know, somebody else might remember this. Even though you sign up for a reappraisal, it takes 2 or 3 years to happen.
Precisely.
Yes. So.
And last year's CLA was 93.11. This
Yep.
year it's 87.89. It dropped almost 4 points in
Yep.
1 year.
Yep.
Unheard of.
Unheard of. Yep, it is. Another thing that I was surprised to learn from Nate, and so let's say that a house sells for $500,000 and it's in the grand list for $300,000. You would think that the listers may make a little bit of adjustment there in the card. They don't. That kind of surprised me, because that means that that it's not helping us kind of, you have a willing buyer and a willing seller that paid $500,000 for a property, and so it's kind of a little weird. Anyway.
Like I said, it's not a discussion, so it's
Yeah.
not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is something that I think we probably need to, I would suggest we get Nate to come in here and talk to us about what's happened in the town. He's the guy, or Bob Thomas, somebody like that, and then get on the agenda for that.
You're only less than 3 points from required.
Yeah.
And like you pointed out, this is, I'm gonna bet that, I haven't seen the other numbers, but I'm gonna bet that most towns are seeing similar. I doubt if very many are seeing less than our drop, so there's gonna be a big push. If there aren't bodies out there to actually do the work, the state's gonna have to grant some leeway. I mean,
Yes.
that's a no-brainer.
Here's something else though, I would like to, everybody to have, when we get to it, I wanna see that sheet of paper that I saw again. It's very strange, because I saw towns that had the very same CLA that we did, 93.1, and their state tax rate was like startling lower than ours.
And those towns like Stowe don't care what their CLA is because they're not dipping into that other pool of money. They're paying for their education with their property tax, homestead property tax, anyway.
What happens when we hit 85 and it triggers a reappraisal, and it takes 3 years to get a reappraisal? If we're in a housing bubble and it bursts 2 years out and everything falls flat, does it correct itself, or what?
It would to some extent, and the speculation that's exactly what's gonna happen to some extent. Did it happen in the 90s when the banks were giving you all the money you wanted? They aren't doing that right now, but,
Yeah, but this is a different situation than the banks giving out money. This is,
There are some things on that sheet that I just talked about, the
Yeah.
state, that are, actually, it's very strange to me.
Okay.
It was strange to me to read. There are some towns in this state, 128 towns, that are 110 and 115% over the CLA.
regardless.
Strange.
By having a bad CLA, and I've been preaching the wrong sermon for a number of years, you are paying more in homestead property taxes than you need to. That's simple.
I heard 10 cents. 10 cents.
On
That
the
came
rate.
right out Ed Connor last year, 10 cents.
10 cents on the rate.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Weathersfield.
quite a bit.
What? Yep. Weathersfield's paying.
Right.
John, thank you very much. Any comments from board members? Any other comments from board members?
Apologize, no.
Dave?
No, Paul's pointing out the sheet that, I guess it's in our packet, right?
No, sorry.
Oh, you found it.
Yeah,
Oh,
Google searched it. It's
Wendy
there.
or?
All set.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, comments from citizens. Topic's not on the agenda. I think I only see Josh Doughlin on there. Josh, you got anything for us tonight? Can you hear us?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have something that's kind of been bothering me for the last month or 2 months with this fire truck situation of the Scutneys. I would like to go on record as the chief of West Weathersfield and as a resident of the town of Weathersfield to state that there's been plenty of discussion over the years that the next 2 trucks should be tankers. We know that there's a water issue that we have in our town, and I know and I get that the trucks are very expensive, and I know that when Darren had originally proposed a 3,000 gallon tanker to the board, that the amount of money for that, regardless of how the truck was spec'd out or whatnot, if there was any questions of that, the board could have at any point had a committee set up to review that, but to take in decrease the funding for that, and essentially turn around and now get another pumper tanker, this is something we've been talking about for years, of having 4 pumper tankers in the town of Weathersfield, and essentially we are now doing this exact same thing of having another pumper tanker. Yes, we are adding 750 gallons on this truck, but it's still not a true tanker. Like I said, I just wanted to go on record that I'm kind of frustrated that it's turned out the way it's turned out, and personally, I think for the town of getting the truck that the spec is due, I believe, on Friday, and spending $325,000 on this, where we're 3/4 of the way of having or being able to take and get a true tanker and start to improve our water situation, it is unfortunate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Anybody want to respond to that?
I would just say briefly that the presentation was made at the town meeting and voters voted for the article, whatever the article stated. I don't see us overturning what the voters voted for.
No.
I don't know what the wording of the article said off the top of my head, but, the voters trump what we do, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Anybody else? Review minutes from previous meeting. I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, March 21st, 2022.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Can we add to the motion with corrections?
Yes, fine with me.
Okay. On the first page, line 46, actually line 43, Rainey Bergeron came in and asked us a question about internet service, and there was an answer provided, but there isn't one in the minutes. Could you please review that and give some sort of synopsis of an answer in the minutes for that? Page 2, line 57, Michael Todd has a business listed as one of the applicants for the grant. He recused himself, not excused, recused, and turned the meeting over to Paul Tillman, and then insert there between Tillman and Weil, and he left the room. That's very important. I felt that was very, very important to do. I didn't want to be in the room at all during that discussion. And then on page 139, that's following the end of the application of the grants, maybe 139, 138, whatever. Mr. Todd was notified and returned to the meeting. Paul Tillman turned the meeting back over to Mr. Todd, just to keep things so we see what's going on. That's all I had, but there is that part on the first page that is going to require some review, so we can't approve these tonight. They'll need to come back as another draft. So I'm going to postpone these to the next meeting. Brandon?
Yep.
These will be postponed to the next meeting, so we'll need and please note on the agenda that the motion is on the floor. Thank you.
Wait, are you done?
Yes.
Are there any other comments about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, any other comments on the, I guess, well, they are coming back, but, because we will be drafting, it's coming back as a draft. But go ahead, Dave.
On number 10, it says acting town manager discussion. It says after much discussion. No, I don't think that's sufficient enough. After I learned what happened in my
You lost me.
number 10 on the minutes.
Oh, not line 10.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yeah, what
10.
line in the?
All right.
Oh, you don't have that, do you?
You
Oh,
got
yeah, I
me
do.
confused.
Get up all the way up to 370.
Okay.
That's like number 10, but
Good thing
I'm
you
just
got
following
me.
out the big numbers, 8, whatever.
There was stuff from the previous meeting and then this meeting, so.
Okay, so is this the 21st? Do I have the right minutes here? Yeah, I think I do. That's the only minutes on the table to be talking about, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get where I was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
370, where it
Yep.
says after much discussion? Okay, after I learned about that and reading about that, that's insufficient to all what I've been talking about the board for 4 months or 3 months, 4 or 5 meetings. Clearly, it wasn't the acting town manager for me, so when do you want to take that up?
You want to have a discussion about what?
Well, you guys went ahead and said something about acting town manager. When I chaired for like the last 4 months, or 3 months at least, I discussed with the board about what I thought was called, and I was I picked my words carefully. I said absence of the town manager.
Mm-hmm.
And it had nothing to do with an acting town manager because that's a planned thing, a vacation or whatever. What I spoke about was not that. So it got kind of
So what is the topic you wanna have on the agenda to discuss?
twisted around. Well, when I saw that, it sounds like whatever, everything got whatever, and then it said, I don't know what, after much discussion regarding an acting town manager meant. I don't know what that means, cause I wasn't here. And
Didn't you prepare a report for all of this? Was in that packet?
doesn't say that here, so I don't know what that means or doesn't mean.
Okay. Did you get the packet?
I don't know.
You don't know if you got the packet?
No, I don't,
For
I
that
don't-
meeting?
I don't recall.
Okay. Could we print a copy of that packet for Mr. Fuller? That way we know he has it. Yeah, cause I know that there is information in there that explains some of that. Paul?
Just to help fix one of the problems, let's just, can we just say after some discussion? That way it doesn't seem like there's,
What if I just take the information from the packet that was reviewed with the select board and comments and look at the minutes?
Or reference, at least,
Or
just reference it,
Sure.
so that it's there. And I've just asked Brandon to get a copy of that to Dave.
I thought I was very clear about what had happened over a month, and, some of the things is you can't plan, so, something needs to happen to take care of some situations. I'm no longer in charge.
And okay, so what would one of those situations be? A fire where some people had to be put,
That the town manager was unavailable.
well, but is
Things
that,
happen.
but is that the issue? The issue is.
It was for me.
The issue is, you know, okay, at this point, what happens if there's a fire and we need to put somebody in a hotel? Do the fire chiefs now have, or I suppose might even fall on Bill, he might be involved too. The fire chiefs have the ability to get these people into a hotel room and take care of
They've
that.
had that ability since we issued them credit cards with $2,000 limits, and authorized them to use that credit card.
Is there a policy issue then that makes it so it's unclear to them what they can do?
I think it was just, that's the way it was done in the past, and I was unaware that the purchasing policy states that they don't need my permission until they exceed a $2,000 threshold. And they have up to $2,000 on their credit card. So, but that's all I have as well.
Paul,
two things. One, we're still talking minutes, now we're into the discussion
okay.
about, but on that, I think part of, I think Mr. Fuller would like to have that on an agenda to talk about, so, I mean, I could say we'd have that, but if we do that, one of the things that I'd wanna have is, it almost sounds like we expect the town manager to be available 24/7. Is that a stipulation that's in his contract, and is that?
I knew somebody'd go there and twist this out of proportion. Let's just move on. No, I knew somebody'd start going down the road of, no, the expectation is clearly not that somebody's gonna be Superman here. The expectation is that things have happened to me when I was emergency management, somebody tested positive COVID-19, somebody thought this meeting was going to happen, the manager was not here, and decisions had to be made. No policy and no perfect thing is going to work in that case. But the town needs to have something set up. And then I had resistance about shutting this down from positive tests. I went over this with everybody. I went over it with everybody a couple of times. Somebody did. You can't assume anything. I got the phone call at 10 o'clock at night claiming that some people needed to be put in a motel, that there was a fire. Somebody else is gonna be getting these phone calls now, because you can't assume that everybody, the fire chiefs or everybody should know all this stuff. They don't.
And I think I started by asking you, what is it the topic that you want to, how do you want this on the agenda? What's the topic you want?
Well, it got twisted around to acting town manager. That was not my case in 4 meetings that I said absence of the town manager, okay? That's a big difference between a planned vacation and somebody twisted it around into signing loans and everything else. It got nothing to do with that. Nothing. Well, I'm happy to put it on another agenda, because it's not on the agenda. It was in the minutes here where it said,
Okay.
much discussion was talking about an acting town manager. That's what the words say. I just read them.
During that discussion, actually, I'm gonna hold off on that. I'm gonna wait until you've received the packet so that you can review that. and then we'll take it up from after that as you request. Because we are in the minutes, and I wanna move on from this discussion. These are gonna be on as a draft, so it's still gonna be coming up there, and we will, if you request a, agenda item, I will put it on the agenda to talk about that stuff. And we can review from the packet the discussions that we had here that night. Because, you know, it was a unanimous decision that was, you know, on these things, and we did talk about these things. So, all right, next on the agenda, where'd I put it? It got lost here somewhere. Town manager update.
We didn't accept.
Oh,
We're tabled.
we're not, I postponed them. You were out or you were on your phone.
Having a smoke, were you?
Town manager update.
Hey, we have, the engineer here from the Lottery Lane project. Can we take the agenda out of order and
There's a request to, review the agenda order, and move the Lottery Lane bid, item 10, up to item 4. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to move it up to item 5.
Item 5, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Motion and a second to rearrange the agenda, and deal with the Lottery Lane bid. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Hammond?
Take it away.
You're welcome to sit at the table if you'd like.
Peanut gallery back there, it's great.
There's a microphone here, so it's, if anybody else wants to hear what you have to say.
A little closer. All right, Everett Hammond, Springfield, Vermont. So the town, actually a couple of years ago, gave Ray a price on this, and they followed through this past fall to continue and complete Lottery Lane culvert design. So the design has been completed. It was sent out a little over a month ago now. Total of 9 contractors took out plans on the project. We had at least 4 these days. Sometimes you're lucky to get anything. We had 4 bidders on it. Adams Trucking and Excavating, you might have seen this in the memo. 195, 136.16. A.S. Clark and Sons, 247, 745. Neil H. Daniels at 273, 150, and that was with some corrections. Yeah, Neil H. Daniels, there was some adding issues on there, so theirs got readjusted from the original
Okay.
bid. Okay, and Northwoods Excavating, 277, 560.14. I worked with Adams Trucking years ago on a project. The end result was good. There was some issues, you know, going through that, but he resolved those issues as more personnel, internal issues. But the quality of the project still came out well. There's some pictures. I don't know if you've forwarded the pictures, that one there, onto the board or not, but
I did not see any pictures, in the email that you sent to me. Maybe I overlooked them.
no, it's just pictures of the culvert itself. Actually,
Yeah, I did not receive them.
You said there were some, issues internally? or
yeah,
whatever?
internally, he worked them out.
Yeah, I have a question. How was the timing on the project?
Timing was good.
Completed on schedule?
Yeah. On schedule, within budget, you know, it was one of those items, that you have, like the Lottery Lane one, you have, the way I like to put them out is you have bid items. You know, so everything's broken out, number of cubic yards, you know, the culvert itself is a one lump sum. Yeah, I just emailed that, yeah. So that way, if something goes over, under, you know, either you pay a little bit more, you pay a little less, but it's a fair, really a good, fair way for the contractors to bid on the project. Because they know exactly what they're bidding on. You get a lot closer bid items when you're comparing the projects. Instead of one lump sum. In other words, do they have everything? You know, here they've got everything. If there's something missing, then I probably didn't include it, and it was justified, then we'll you know, put it in the bid. But right now, I think it's pretty conclusive on everything we've got right now. Yeah, this is the before and after of the one they completed in 2013. This is in Saxons River, Vermont. So it was a big improvement. Much needed. That was a 3-sided concrete box culvert, so if the footings are poured, There's a three-sided culvert, there's a pretty wide culvert, that's the reason it was, with the footings and the three-sided, and then the project on top. And it's tough, they had to do this with the road one lane, and that's about the worst the hardest ones you do is one lane open at a time, because this is Route 121 heading out toward Athens, Grafton.
Yeah.
So it's tough little project for anybody to work on. But other references, they came back. I called Great River Hydro, all praises, Tim Hardy. In fact, working with Great River Hydro, they're a company that they only have 2 or 3 contractors, may only be 2. I think it's maybe Daniel. Well, I know it's Buck Adams. They've been working for them for years. I'm not sure if it's Basins. I think it's another company, but someone else does work for them. So they don't go out to bid. They have contractors they pick from. Depends on what they're doing. They probably get a price on it, but they've had great luck with them, and that's been probably 15 years anyway with Buck Adams. And then Ron Tarble from Ludlow talked to Ray Stapleton, I think on Friday. They've done several projects up there in Ludlow, no problems. No problems with them. All the work was done on time. They were very easy to work with, and I've had no problem working with Buck Adams. He tells you what he's gonna do, he does it. And they would recommend Adams Trucking.
Okay. Well, that, I guess, concludes the presentation. Do I hear a motion?
So you're looking for a motion to accept one of the bids to go forward?
Yep.
I'll make a motion for discussion purposes to accept a bid from Adams Trucking and Excavating for $195,136.16 for a project on Lottery Lane, Culvert.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
So we got a grant that's gonna pay for $175,000 of this, and then we have to come up with the remaining.
Brendan, where's that coming from?
We're currently in the process of developing the next finance report. Depending on where we stand right now, it's possible that we can just pay for it in this year's budget, because we've been short one worker. So there will be potentially a surplus, or we could transfer it from reserves.
Still a lot of work for only $20,000 at the cost of the taxpayer.
Of course.
Chief, you have any issues out there on that Lottery Lane?
Other than a couple of years ago when we had that flooding issue, but they did a pretty good job fixing it. I don't know how bad the beavers have been back. I know on the Ensign School Road we've had an issue with them, but I don't know about Lottery Lane.
Dave, have you had a chance to talk with anybody about your concerns with this, on timing and
Well,
your issues?
yeah, I did some homework. It turns out that the guy that's in charge of the beavers, Ryan, I can't remember his last name, said that he didn't object to anything about what was going on to control the beavers there. That the town needed to do whatever it needed to do to protect the culvert from any kind of wildlife. Just didn't do it. I spoke directly with him. The north, there's about 5 or 6 homes that are on the north part of this. I don't think they were noticed of the kind of construction that's gonna take place. And it's gonna raise the road by 2 feet. Randy Brown didn't know that. He's the south neighbor of it. He actually was at the contractor visit. He didn't know there was gonna be 156 feet of guardrails. There may be some other fallout of this project. I don't know how to go about it, but the fire department uses that site to fill tankers pretty frequently. it does dry up in the summer. The new culvert is gonna be 50 feet. I think the existing one, I think the existing one is closer to 30. It is, I guess my concern was, what I said a month or two ago, was that it is timing, and I appreciate you asking about when the time was. I'm not denying the fact that the water needs to go from a place to a place and protect the road. This seems a very, to me, a very, very big overkill project for what the site is. So I get it that there was a grant submitted to do the work. I learned some things on the, on the site, so when they're gonna dig it up and do it, they're gonna do similar what Ray did and the town did when they replaced the secondary culvert. They're gonna dig a channel so the water can go while they construct what they're trying to do. I get that part. Other than that, I don't know what to say. I know we got a grant for this project. I guess it's specifically targeted for Lottery Lane. Some of these grants can move around. Is there a particular time that you asked Adams whether he was gonna start this? I mean, I have definitely 50% of my farm is over there, and I gotta go around like 2 more miles to get to where I need to get, so, a month or 6 weeks delay for me is pretty good handicap for me. So did he say when he wanted to, have you had a chat with him or no?
I did a little bit. He's got a 3-month project in Keene. He said this would be the next one, so that'd probably put him in August. If it gets delayed down there, it could be, 3 months, April, May, June, maybe July, potentially August, which is.
August isn't bad, and I don't think it's bad for the weather either. Don't get me wrong, I don't wanna lose the opportunity to fix the culvert if there's money in hand, there is. So, but having said all that, it sounds like it's a very big culvert for that area and that water, for me. I mean, I've had property on there for 45 years, so.
Is that gonna raise the road 2 feet there?
Yeah, I mean, David's right, it's a big culvert.
Yeah.
There's no question about
Yeah,
that.
I know that, yeah.
And doing, the reason it's gotta be that size culvert, you're matching the state hydraulic permit, hydraulic, study that they've done on this whole area.
Right.
That's the reason.
I thought the report said it would be approximately a foot increase in the road height.
Yeah, so you've gotta have some cover over the culvert. So originally I looked at a concrete box culvert. You put a concrete box culvert, you got the thickness of the top of it as well.
Yeah.
So that pushes up, almost would've been 3 feet if I went with a concrete box culvert with maybe 2 feet of cover. So then I started looking at this other, the aluminum, this is aluminum, box culvert is what they call it. It's kind of put together in the field. You could get by with 1.6 feet of cover. 1.4 actually, I've designed it with 1.6. So in the thickness is, 2 or 3 inches thick. So you don't need to raise it up, 2 feet, you still need 2 feet.
But I thought the culvert was getting set down in the ground.
It is getting set down in there, cause some of
Almost
it's,
2 feet, right?
some of it's
Below the-
buried,
the
but
pad.
even the height of what they're requiring is a lot larger.
Okay.
So it's, I looked at both options, and with the nature of the material under that, it's not like a brook that you got a regular normal brook where you got all the solid aggregate. You got a little more loose sandy material. So this culvert would have been a little bit more forgiving than a box culvert, plus actually quite a bit cheaper. Right now, if you put this out with a box culvert, you'd be lucky to get it in this year. It probably wouldn't happen anyway, because a lot of those companies are out there November right now, some October. There's one that was out there, and that was like a month ago now, sometimes in June, but they're probably even busy now. So no, it's large. Unfortunately, to hit if you want the grant, that is, if you want to go to the grant, the state requires you to make it this size, or put your own culvert in. And we'll see
What
later.
about the guardrails?
Guardrails, actually, so yes, it is 156 feet. Half that would be, 78 feet each side. That's actually the lowest I can go when trying to make it fit in this area. The whole road along this whole wetland section, so you get wetlands on both sides. So when you first start in, we'll be keeping it down, but as you kind of get over the culvert, you've got to raise it up and back down. So it's about 200 feet, maybe 250 of actually raising, not all of it is raising. It's only right over the culvert, probably 50 feet over the culvert is actually raising 2 feet on each side, then it's tapering down on each side of that.
Okay.
So no, it's one of the toughest ones I've thought about.
Guardrails aren't an option here then?
No, you need the guardrails. It's unfortunately not an option, correct?
Okay.
Because you'll have a sharp drop off. And the reason for the 50-foot, David, I mean, is because then you've got slopes, you know, the grading on each end. Yeah, maybe I could have shortened up 5 feet, but 5 feet over the whole course of the project really doesn't make that big a difference. And it makes the 5 feet would have made it steeper on each end, more chance for erosion after the highway crew grades it. And I'm trying to avoid and keep the things as shallow, you know, as stable as you can, especially with the wetlands on both sides. You know, yeah, I agree with David. I mean, I wish it wasn't, you know, you think, do you need $200,000 on that? That's a lot of money for a culvert. The good thing is, I've done probably at least 24 hydraulically sized state, you know, culverts, and none of them washed out or, you know, in all these years. So they do hold up, they do size them, you know, so you shouldn't walk away unless we have a 500-year flood, you might have a problem.
And Ray, you're obviously in favor of this, and you,
I wish it was a simple culvert replacement, but, to get the hydraulic, you have to get a hydraulic study done to replace a culvert that size in a year-round stream. You have to apply for a permit to get the waterway permit to do it. And you have to have them issue a special permit allowing you to put in a different size culvert. And then if anything happens, like a flood event, they won't cover that because it's not built to the standard. So the choice was to not replace it with a regular size culvert that's in there now with a special permit, but then have the town have to cover any expense if it does ever wash out or not work, or go this route. So we went this route, the grant.
Everett, I don't have the specs in front of me. What is it, 6 feet wide? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, it's,
6 feet about?
No.
8 feet.
8 feet wide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wait, no, this one, no, sorry, I was thinking something else. It's 16, 15 or 16. Had it been a box culvert, it would have been like 13 wide by maybe 6. Because now you've got the metal culvert, so it's kind of, even though it's not square metal, because you've got it kind of sloping, but to get the area you need, you had to go wider. You had to go a little bit wider culvert because of the metal, and because the aluminum, not the metal, but. And I looked at, you could have gone actually galvanized metal or aluminum. I'm just thinking down the road of 75 years. You'd probably aluminum have a little more salvage value for the town, hopefully, than rotted out metal. But, and one thing on the grants, if it's a 90-10 grant, is that what it is?
Yeah, we have 10%, but if it's over the 175, we have to come up with a difference, so it's gonna be 20,000.
Yeah. Well, actually, regardless, the way the grants work, you've got to come up with 10%.
we're not off by that much, 2,500, Dave.
So in the, again, I don't have the design in front of me, Everett, but so you've got the guardrails up, right? How far on the north side, let's say, because I don't know if everybody's as familiar with that side as I am. So the water travels from north to south, okay? Or actually from east to west, yes, okay. So there really isn't a lot of drop-off, like maybe a foot, okay, of slope. It's very flat, the area, no more than 2 feet pitch. How far then would the culvert stick out to the east from the guardrails? And the reason I'm asking that is, even though you just told me that it's 16 feet wide, the beavers in that area, I would like them to throw hay for me, because they are trying to block the Branch Brook in 2 spots. The Branch Brook is like 40 feet wide, and is much more swift in water than this particular area. So if we're thinking ahead like a town, like, okay, we have a culvert problem, and that culvert sticks out beyond the guardrails by like 10 or 15 feet, our backhoe's not reaching that to put a screen on to help,
Or to dig it out.
to block something,
you
so
block it.
where that would happen. I just, I'm gonna vote for this because I think it's needed, but I wanna work with whatever the time frame is and whatever the logistical problem, like I just pointed out about cleaning, about what to do with that. Because I think that might happen in 5 years or 7 years or something, because it does dry up in August. And like Randy Brown pointed out, the people that live in the east house, there is a couple of beaver dams there. So They're really smart, they know what they're doing, so I don't know how to address what I just asked.
I can answer the question you asked, so it's about 14 feet roughly on that ballpark, from the guardrail, from the face of the guardrail to the inlet and to
Do you
that.
know what I was talking about,
Bill,
Ray?
yeah, I'll get back to that real quick, but Bill had his hand up for a while.
I just wanted, well, I just wanted you guys to know that I'm not an engineer, so when you asked how the road was with us, it doesn't impact us. You know, Ray would know more than we do. We drive across the road, it seems fine. If I ever have an issue, I call Ray. So when I said it was no problem to us, it isn't for our purposes, but as far as what the town and the engineer do, that's something totally different. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm not in favor of it, because I don't know what the engineer and everything discovered. So,
I appreciate you clarifying.
yeah,
Ray?
To get back to the issue that Dave is talking about, one thing I had thought about when the fire department was wanting to draft there, if they're still able to, is to have the guardrail jag out a little bit and have a pull-off area, and then our backhoe can sit out there and reach the end of the tube, and the fire truck can get out of the road and draft.
So that's a decision for Everett or you to work out, right? Okay, good. I'm okay then. That's exactly where I was trying to go. Okay.
Well, I just had a quick question. Dave, you had mentioned something, you talked to Ryan, the beaver guy?
Yeah.
And he said that the town could do what they needed to do to.
To protect the culvert, yeah, they could put a screen up or whatever, yeah.
Okay, so that stuff we can do, but not do anything with the beavers, but like,
No,
can't even
that's
go take care of their dam or nothing, right?
Well, that's a landowner issue.
That is,
So
okay.
they could work, whoever could work with fishing game, he was with fishing game, so they could
Yeah.
work with the landowner.
I think there's other issues too with busting a beaver dam.
That's why I didn't know.
So for the last 4 years, I've been working with Randy Brown and
The trapper
other people
for town.
to take care of issues, and they allow you to do a hand V-notch on an established dam. An established dam is considered anything that's over 2 years old. So this is from the 70s, it's been added on to since then.
Sure.
So it's definitely an established dam, so we can't go out there with a piece of equipment and take it out. We
Gotcha.
discussed it, we wanted to, but it's not allowed at all in the state of Vermont. It's
Well,
definitely
the
not.
state of Vermont found that out over at my place when they busted that dam over there and had 4 feet of water down,
We
down
are-
at
we
the
are
airport at
managing-
Four Corners on
We're
Kendrick
doing what we
Court.
can to manage it following the standards.
Okay, everybody happy? Any other questions from anybody? Everybody's clear on everything?
Can I just
Everett?
add one thing? The face to face of the guardrail, it's either we got 22 or 24 feet, so we could look at what Dave was talking about, with, Ray. You may not need to bump out the guardrail. In fact, this site is so tight with wetlands, you're allowed up to 5,000 square feet, for this wetland permit. We've got 4,990.
And I
So
would,
we'll look at it, see if it can happen, but you may not need it anyway, so I just wanted to,
Okay. But it is a possibility that it could be,
Right.
the road's gonna be torn apart, that's a good time to put the good material in the comparator.
and I know that we don't really have any say in this, but I will ask just through you, due to Mr. Fuller's concerns with his farm about the time and you know, trying to get in as quickly as possible and get that thing done.
You're still the engineer for this, right, Everett?
Yeah.
You're still gonna be the engineer for the site, for whatever.
myself, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I'm fine.
I mean, I'll look at it, we got a guy in around the corner too, so it might, whatever the best deal is and I'll talk to the manager about this. If it's better to have the guy around the corner, which lives in Weathersfield, oversee it, we'll talk about it.
Any further discussion on
If
the
it's
motion?
better dollar-wise, you know, and he has done a lot of the stuff. No other, but timing-wise, he's got a contract that would go from June till October. It's, you know, and when he does, and can't guarantee you when he's gonna finish in Keene.
That's
Our
all.
deadline has to be done and paid for and taken care of by the 30th of December. So obviously you don't dig that late in the year, but that's when the.
Right.
Well, like I said, we don't have any authority, but we can always ask. Please,
Right, that's-
please do.
And we'll do his best we can, you know.
No further discussion on the motion. All those in favor of awarding the Lottery Lane Culvert Box Grant contract to Adams Trucking and Excavating for a total of $195,136.16, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. They have the bid, and we will move forward.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Everett.
you, Everett.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Now I gotta go back to the town manager's update.
All right, I just have a couple of really quick things. The first thing is we're in the process of developing our capital plan. We got through the fire departments, and now we're moving to the highway department. The team that was assembled to do this is the treasurer, the accountant, and each respective department head and I. So we're hoping to have a draft prepared for the board in May. The second thing is the building assessments update. The guy that we have, or the contractor that we have walking around with us to do these, contracted COVID. So we had to reschedule all of the assessments, so that's just the new schedule for those assessments. He didn't expose anybody in the town office to COVID. He got it over the weekend and tested positive the following day. So there was no need
Yeah,
to.
I called you Monday morning, you called me.
Yep, exactly. Highway garage solar project update. All posts are installed. The rack will be completed Saturday 4/2, so it should have happened over the weekend. Underground wiring is complete. Panels should have arrived this week. They're currently coordinating with Green Mountain Power for the install. Fences to be installed at the end of the month. And we're currently in the process of figuring out how we're gonna set up the $50,000 decommissioning fund. I'll update you. But basically what that is it's in the contract.
Yep.
And 25 years from now, if we decide that we want the site decommissioned, then that fund is set up to do that. And Barrington Power has to set up that fund. We're currently kind of going through the details with Town Council and Barrington Power, because they wanted to set it up in their name. We're saying that it should be set up in our name, in the case if they ever go through bankruptcy, and we won't lose the money. So we're trying to just make sure that we're covered. AVFA fire truck RFP. Back up to the solar stuff. In the case anything could happen, so that's why we wanted it in our name. The fire truck RFP is due
March 9th.
on April 8th at 11 a.m.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. The public bid opening will take place at 12 p.m. and then we'll have the bids into the board on the 21st. The highway department and the fire departments submitted a passive grant that's 100% this year. So I'll let you guys know if that gets approved. Animal control officer, we met and came up with an agreement for a $500 stipend. And with this in place, Ms. Sullivan has agreed to continue providing animal control services and the shelter for the town. Water district update. Jason Rasmussen and I held a meeting with Tom Brown from the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, Department of Environmental Conservation, and basically we briefed Mr. Brown about the $75,000 that the select board designated for the water district project. And he went through the process on how we would leverage that money. The first thing is to do a preliminary engineering report. So the state actually provides a grant up to $125,000 to do this, and that also includes a hydraulic study for the water system and mapping. So that's the first step. And then after that preliminary engineering report is complete, it gives us a final estimate for the project, and we send that to the state, and then we move forward with the funding. The annual water district meeting has been warned for May 4th, to anybody that's interested in that.
Okay. I have one thing, on highway solar, when I went over there, I sort of remember, in my head, the maps and drawings of where things were supposed to be, and when I go over there, I thought it was kind of encroaching out further towards the highway garage itself, in that parking lot area, than I thought it was supposed to. Is it where it's supposed to be?
Yeah, it's actually, further back a little bit. They
Oh.
actually canceled a couple towards where where we turned to go up to the salt shed.
Yep, okay. All right, so then that's all good.
And the fence is gonna be approximately 14 feet away from the last panel, because they're gonna have a coat on the inside all the way around for access for mowing.
Okay. Any other questions on the town manager's report or comments? Dave?
On the ARPA funds, do you go around, you're going with them?
Yes.
Is there like a generic sheet? So, you know,
Yes.
one of the things is really fun, and it was very important to have, for instance, a document that says when a well was put in, when the septic was put in, and the condition of the building. I know, for instance, my son-in-law went up on the roof at the highway, and he wanted to know, he called me up, said, how old is it? I said, let me make a phone call, I'll find out. The highway, I called Wes. That thing was built in 1972 and finished April 6, 1973. I said, how do you know that? He said, it's the first day I started work. There you go. But they found out some interesting things. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna help us.
Yep.
He put his, I don't know whether you know about this, Ray. He put his hand through 5 holes in the roof at the highway garage. 5 spots.
So that will be
That's,
something.
that's really good
for
to
our
know.
attention here.
Okay.
It's been, I asked him to come down.
Yeah, no, I'd like,
I've been working on it for about 3 years.
And I'm not gonna be bashful to say that I'm not a big fan of flat roofs. And I'd wanna see something, maybe that starts to talk about putting some sort of truss system up there.
I just think this is, and I don't wanna, you know, this isn't on the agenda, but I think this is a really good thing.
Yeah.
So the next thing is, when you talked about the solar, if you take a close look at the contract, it says that part of that $50,000 can be used for screening. I looked at it. So that means some trees planting maybe alongside where like the highway, I don't know whether anybody's gonna object to it, or not. I would suggest that you get together with Brandon and you post up, there's been a little bit of chatter about the negative effect of this. And they're saying, you know, like, we're not really gonna get any money out of this. I suggest that we post up on the website and then on whatever social media we want to, because it's part of our job to educate the public. We're getting $11,000 a year for 25 years to rent that 5 acres. We haven't even had to pay for a lawyer. We're getting 10% winding back on every meter in town, including this building, for 25 years, including the rate increases on GMP. It's a big deal. So I think we should promote that, and to respond to somebody saying, this is really like nothing, and no, it isn't nothing. So, on the animal control, what did it go from? Now we're paying $500 a month. Didn't we pay like a lot less than that? What's going on there?
Yeah, it was like $150 a month, and the increase in gas and other things that she needs to do it, I didn't think it was unreasonable to go from 150 to 500.
Yeah, but we're gonna go from $1,700 a year to $6,000. That's not budgeted. So maybe we should think about having a fee or something when she has to be called out. I don't know, you know, I don't really know, or I don't really know.
Or charging fees back
I
to
don't know how to handle that.
things.
Like when you got a loose dog, or I don't know.
And you know, also the price increase in gas, and she had to purchase a new vehicle, and it's costing a lot more money when she has to leave the house.
And
Is it-
Brandon called me on this and told me what was going on, and it was like, she's done. She's gone. Because, you know, she can't do it for this kind of money. I said, talk to her, find out what she needs. That's what I said to him, and this is what he come up with. So,
I don't.
now I agree with you. Let's start looking at what we're gonna do to offset this to some degree. Well,
Just a quick other question too. Have we looked at is there anything else or any other towns that have a control officer that, you know, would put in
I
a
think
bid?
we'll
or-
get into a lot more money.
Okay. I was just curious. I don't know.
Yeah, I can put together a contract of some sort that the town and the animal control officer agrees to.
What happens if nothing goes on though? So it ends up being like 1,000 for 1 month and then nothing for the other, or what? I don't want to put Bill on the spot, but I see him shaking his head.
I'm not happy at all hearing this. I gotta be honest with you. I am not happy one bit. I have complained about her for a long time. Residents complain about her, and I tell them to call Brandon now, that she doesn't go to calls, and we end up dealing with the problem. I can't imagine we're paying her more money when she doesn't do what she's supposed to be doing now. So I'm not happy to hear about it.
I didn't know that. I'm just hearing about that now.
Ouch.
I didn't want to bring that up, but from real experience, I have 2 dogs that have gotten away. I've had 2 or 3 conversations with the chief and the fire chief and other residents in town, and spent an afternoon looking for my dogs before I even got a call back from animal control. So, yeah, I didn't really
Can we
know.
just do some homework? Can you take it up, please, with the
Yes.
town manager?
Yes.
We need to move on, but can you just look around? I know you gotta do what you gotta do right now, but let's
That's why I was asking.
I will.
Look
meet with
around.
Brandon, we'll have a conversation. Wendy wanted the floor for a moment.
I now don't need it.
Now,
I now do not need it. I had many years. The only other question I had was, how many years has she been doing it at the price that she, but that was actually the thing that, for the years that we've been here in this town and having 92 elderly people and having no calls responded to, all I get is frustration from residents here, not just at Country Estates, but other places.
that opens
people
up
have spoken to
another,
me. So,
Hook your dog.
another whole story, doesn't it?
yeah, so.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll get with Brandon on this. Next on the agenda is salaried employees personnel policy.
So we currently have a couple of situations. The first situation is I was asked to figure out some kind of formula for an employee who's currently salaried to work overtime. And the second was, there's a Pike Industries contract which is on the agenda, and the personnel policy only allows a salaried employee to receive overtime if it's a holiday. So this work will be done during a regular work day, or not a regular work day, but not on a holiday. So we would need some kind of exception to the personnel policy for that.
What page is that on, Brandon?
Shall I? interrupt?
Yeah,
I
yes.
can see my part now about it. Well, it'll give them a little clarification on the Pike part of it.
I talked to Mike about, it is a contract with the town, and the taxpayers are not paying for the overtime. However, it's still flowing through the accounting system, so we would still need an exception. So the two situations are different in that one is paid for with tax dollars, whereas the other one is paid for with a contract.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest that you take these one at a time. I think it's a little simpler for us to look at let's look at number one, and I'd be happy to comment on number one.
Yes, go.
I don't think we need a policy change for that kind of situation. I think I wrote that to you in the memo for transferring, kind of head to head here, where we have had instances where people have earned, put time in, and the board recognizes that and directs the management to do that. The board has specifically, that I'm aware of, over a long period of years, done that very same thing with the manager, where we don't modify any policy, we don't amend his contract to do anything. We just think from time to time somebody did something, and then we awarded them a lump sum of money for doing the job that we thought. I think it's no different here, where the highway was down, where we recognized that Ray was putting in a certain amount of time over, and I think we should do something about that. But I don't think if the labor rectifies itself, or he's able to hire some contract labor to do that, then it's not a matter of modifying the policy. I just think I think this could be done simpler, that's all. So that's what I suggest.
Okay. So, right now, up to 50 hours, you're salaried, you go over 50 hours, and you get paid overtime.
Where is
because,
that?
uh,
Where's that stated?
That was an administrative decision made by Brandon because of the highway being down by 2 employees.
Well, it was requested that I come up with some kind of a formula, so that was the formula that I came up with temporarily.
Yes.
The thing that I recall was a lump sum. I mean, I remember saying, you know, I think we threw out the number.
If I may, I think I agree with Dave a little bit. I think at that one meeting, we talked about, here's something, and we didn't wanna make that happen all the time. It was for that specific
Yep.
reason. Then I think at another meeting, Dave did ask about, not necessarily that particular situation, but just how does it work when you get hourly, salary, and what's our policy here? So I almost think somehow that might have gotten wrapped into one thing when it was really kind of two. Dave did ask for that, but I do remember exactly what he said. It's just here's a lump sum for, you know, you've been taking care of 2 people's jobs and so on and so forth. So I don't know how you want to go about that, but I agree with Dave. I don't think we need a policy change just for what we decided to do a few meetings ago.
Okay.
Because I think
So if we look at that and we say that solves situation number 1, and we go to situation number 2, and that's the chief's request to work for Pike. And Brandon, what is your position on this with the?
Well, I don't have a problem with it at all. The only thing that I do have an issue with is that the personnel policy states on page 7, section 8, in accordance with the provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act as amended, it shall be the policy of the town of Weathersfield to pay 1 1/2 times the hourly rate of pay to all non-exempt employees, except elected officials and exempt employees. So when you're salaried, you're an exempt employee, which means that's in direct violation of the personnel policy. So I would just be looking for an exception to the personnel policy, considering the money is actually coming from a contract with Pike Industries to do a police detail. It gives police officers the opportunity to make a little bit of additional money, which is on the agenda next. We're going to talk about that, but in this case, it does directly, it doesn't, in the policy, it doesn't say if you have a contract with an outside entity, then this doesn't apply. It just directly, prohibits salaried employees from collecting time and time and a half.
so. I see where Brandon's going. I personally have no problem with what they want to do. I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I understand his thing with that. Question though, that change any policies, you gotta have 3 readings, you gotta have all this time and everything. I don't know, I don't know where this has all fallen. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the date.
The details, like,
It's in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've been doing it for 8 years, since I started here from day 1. And the memo I sent him lists every contractual service that we have done since I started here. So it's nothing new, it's something I've been doing since Jim Mullins' time.
and I don't disagree with that either.
Brandon's just trying to clean things up.
Yes.
So what can we do? Is there an interim? Can you do an interim to something?
Well, what I'm trying to do is, in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how to break it out as a separate, subcontract labor, separate from the town.
We put in it, every time we do something, it's a separate thing. Like our DUI-OP grant is separate on the books, which is something like this. The Army Corps of Engineers separate on the books. So this would be the same thing, it's called contractual service. So we submit a bill to them at the end of the month for a set rate per hour per officer, or end of each week, I mean. And then they pay us, and then the money goes into what's called the contractual services. So it doesn't come out of my budget, it's contractual
Well,
services.
see, for me, there's the separation, because our policy is in place to control the monies that we levy taxes on the taxpayers for to support the operations of the town. And that's, so I see like that money coming in to pay him to do that work. It's not taxpayers' money. even though it comes into the town and we pay it out, he's getting paid a flat rate to do a contracted job. So I don't see it, even though it's extra time and yeah, we're the ones that pay out that check, it's not overtime through our accounting system. Is that clear? Does it make sense?
It is if it goes through our books.
Yeah, exactly. I don't.
If
I don't
his
agree
pay
with
goes
that.
through our books, it's
I
ours.
tried to explain this. I already
So-
tried to explain
so-
this.
So I have, if I may,
Yeah.
quickly,
Then Ray.
I think we got two things. One, I'm fine with changing the policy, but I wanna be able to get something so that Bill can do what he needs to, especially now that it's at light. I didn't know it was something we couldn't do, so. I don't think we're gonna get the policy changed in time.
I think this will simplify things. It's a contract between the town and Pike Industries, not between Pike Industries and Chief Daniels or the officers.
Okay.
So what that means is we get paid through Pike Industries and the contract is with us. And then we turn around and we pay the police department for doing the detail. So that's, regardless of how you look at it, it's still flowing through our accounting system, and our accounting system has internal controls, and this is one of the controls. So I think you can make an exception to the policy for this particular situation while we revise the policy for the future to allow for it, is what I would recommend. And that covers the situation and allows the police to do the detail.
Ray.
I had a question for Rain, and you just answered, I think. Can you just get a vote by the board, so it's on the record saying that you can pay him overtime, even though it's not a holiday, temporarily? Will that help this? So it's just on the record, so you're covered? Is that what you're looking for?
Or to just waive section 8, which I can see Dave's face right now, he's not liking that at all.
You have policy for a reason. You can't, I mean, that's like having somebody come in and say, I don't wanna do a zoning permit, can I get a waiver?
But I wanna put the house up.
Yeah, exactly, go ahead.
Paul's right, you can't, it takes 3 sets of hearings to do policy changes and, have readings and then opportunity to comment on them, they probably change. Let me talk about, I'd like to talk about the contract. So, Bill, it's a contract with Pike, right? So they're paving. So are all these roads or whatever the activity is in town?
Yep.
In Weathersfield?
Yes.
Okay. What is your, I'm hearing an awful lot of chatter about police and town or whatever. So how does this affect your current schedule or staff?
So right now, it's gonna be me, Ryan, the other full-timer, we have the 2 part-time officers, and then we're gonna backfill with, if we need to, Windsor County Sheriff or Windsor PD. So it's done not on shift, it's a separate, anytime anybody works it, if Ryan works it, it's gonna be when he's off duty, when I work it, it's off duty, and we'll make up the hours. Like normally on our days off, we work with detail. So that's how it's gonna be covered, and right now, they're guessing it's gonna be about a 2-month project from April through end of June. So it's like an 8 to 9 week project, approximately 60 hours a week.
Where are they talking about?
From Downers Four Corners to the state line on Route 131.
I was
The
just
state
repaving.
line, or, okay, all the way up here?
Yep.
Through Ascutney, through the lights?
They're
They're gonna pave
repaving the whole thing again?
So they're, I think what they're doing is skim coating it, because they're making it match, they want the same duration that they just did the 131 project over. So yeah, it's gonna, and Route 5 is gonna be done by Basin Brothers, so you're gonna have 2 projects going
Yeah.
kind of at the same time.
That's great, we got a good road, they're gonna skim coat it, and then that'll start peeling and making.
It's gonna look like 131 going to Cavendish. I mean, there's been so many accidents, so people are going 60 over there, through there. So my next question is, what about the calls that may come in when you're there on traffic detail?
There'll be another officer on the road.
They what?
There's gonna be an officer on the road. The town's never gonna have to be covered to cover a detail. We'll always have an officer working.
So you have a schedule worked out kind of what you wanna do?
Yes.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer about waiving policies or whatever, a contract either. I just don't know enough about, for the pay or whatever. I get it that it's a contract with the town, and it's not a contract with the police department because the police department is the town.
So in the past, when you got paid, was it overtime for you? It was.
Overtime off shift.
Huh.
Yeah, we've done projects.
Are they paying us enough money to pay them overtime, time and a half?
Yeah, they are, and
Okay.
I've done all that math, and we're gonna make, so that's on the next agenda item, we're gonna make $10,000 as well, but this personnel policy was created in 2019. So this happened, and when there was opportunity to discuss it, I don't know if those two things weren't married or what happened, but this section 8, no, it was before COVID. This section 8 was created, and now, since this is in place, doesn't allow for this. But it should.
It should. You feel it should.
I feel it should, yes. Police departments do details in every town. But my thing is I wanted to figure this out before the detail, so that when this is submitted, everything's clear. Because it's gonna go into the warrant.
Who's in jail from signing the warrant for the last 8 years?
Nobody's in jail, I know.
Nobody, right?
No.
Okay. Anybody arrested? Anybody fired? Okay.
Please.
Go ahead.
Who, so is there any other, so has the contract been negotiated, or what stage is the contract in now, or notice, or dates, or whatever, or if Weathersfield doesn't do this, does somebody else do it? Where is it at?
So if you go to the next agenda, do you wanna move to the next agenda
Yeah, I
item?
do. I was just gonna say, let's move to that next agenda item now.
Well, I don't know if you guys wanna do anything with the policy under this agenda item.
We can come back.
Okay. All right. So are we going to the next?
Yes.
So if you go to page,
We've been asked to contract with Pike Industries for the spring through the summer of 2022.
yep. So the contract is in the packet as attachment B, if you wanna go to that. This contract is something that you prepared.
So the contract is, the dates they gave us were April 27th, I think, to June something.
April
29th to June
29th.
27th.
So it's approximately 60 hours a week. If they do have to cancel for weather conditions or equipment breakage or whatever, could extend it, but that's what they're looking at for an approximate time. It's a cruiser and an officer minimum every day. There's a couple of days that they're gonna require two when they're working on this side of the interstate just because of the roadway. So as I said to Brandon, we plan on using the spare cruiser that we have, so that way it doesn't take a car out of our fleet. It's a set dollar amount in there per officer, and then it breaks down to the hourly rate plus the cost of gas, and that's the rough amount of hours that we're gonna work per week per officer. Knowing that if we do have to, if one of our officers can't do it, Windsor County Sheriff said they'll try to help us out. Windsor PD also said they would try to help us out. So the part-time officers and those agencies get one rate, and then Officer Prince and I get a different rate because we're full-time. If we don't do it, they've been on me. They reached out to us, I think last year we did the contract with them over on our side of the 131 project when they were installing the guardrails and installing some signage. That's when they told us about this. They reached out to us, I wanna say in February, just saying that they were interested in contracting with us, and it wasn't until I wanna say 2 weeks ago, they actually came in and gave us, all right, this is the date we're gonna start, so we need to sign a contract. So at this time, I presented it to Brandon to present to you, but we haven't signed a contract with Pike, because because I didn't wanna do it until we got the okay from the board to do it.
And to answer your question, Kelly, we will make a total of $30,600 total and pay the police department an estimated of $18,603, $1710 for wear and tear on the cruiser, and the net will be a positive $10,000.
All right, so going back to the policy now. I heard Brandon say he's not opposed to this. I've heard Paul say he's not opposed to this. Dave, where are you at on this? You got an opinion yet?
The policy will have to be waived in order to provide provisions for the contract.
Actually, I might have another solution but you're right, eventually we gotta get there. But we might have a solution. Where are you at, Cal, with this?
I don't have a problem with it, but it's something we have to do, like Dave said, either do a waiver or.
Wendy?
I don't have a problem with the detail.
Okay, so, if we have we have a general consensus of the board to change the policy, but we can't change the policy in the short amount of time that we have, because it takes 3 readings at a regularly warned meeting. So that's, 2, 4, 6 weeks out to do that.
But I think we could pass a motion to waive the policy for 90 days.
But I don't know that you need to waive the policy. You only need to come up with an agreement with the chief on how he gets paid. And then we can correct it once we get through the policy change. So that it all works out exactly the same.
It's still gonna hit our books, so let me put it like this.
I don't think you're only talking about paying the chief, because
No,
these other guys are gonna be overtime.
Yeah,
too.
some of the other guys are not salaried employees though.
So
Right,
I've reviewed the total cost of employment per officer, and when you pay out, you have to pay the hourly overtime rate, FICA, VMERS, which is for retirement, workers' compensation, unemployment, and the cruiser hourly rate.
And you
policy.
know that they're different than the
Okay.
regular pay rate.
Yes.
Okay, so
And-
that won't work.
No, we
Is
need to
somebody-
waive the policy for 90 days. What's the contract? When do they think they're gonna have it over by? That's all you gotta pay attention to.
They're guessing it's gonna be over by June, the end of June. But it might run into, the other thing he says, it might run into July if they have cancellation because of weather equipment. And this isn't a high priority on their list, and right now they're doing a Chester detail. They're doing 3 different details, so he said if they have to pull equipment and manpower, then that will take precedence over this. But they're projected the end of this month.
Mike, by only waiving the policy a certain time, you framed it so that Brandon can then, that the policy will still be enforced after this is over, so in case something ever comes up, that he can refer to the policy again. This is a one-time event.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that, like, if we waive the whole section, section 8, are we opening up another can of worms? I wanna try to be specific of dealing with this specific situation if we can.
The motion could be worded that way.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
That's what I was gonna do.
Okay,
I make a motion that we waive the personnel policy, section 8 for, the Weathersfield Police Department, to be contracted with Pike Industry, until August 1st of 2022.
And I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second to waive the section 8 of the personnel policy plan for the police department for a period of 90 days?
No, he made August 1st, that's good.
August
That's
1st?
good.
And I did specifically say for Pike Industry contract.
Oh, okay. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that takes care of the policy. And now, do we have to do anything on this contract, Brandon?
Nope, we're all set. Chief and I can take care of it from here.
Okay, perfect.
Be safe.
Thank you, chief.
I've got another thing.
Sorry, huh?
Am I here for another thing?
Yeah, he's here for the
Yeah,
next
police
thing.
car.
I'm here for another thing.
Oh, yeah, the next one, you're up again, that's right.
The one you're gonna put out there to sit, that's the spare one?
Yeah, no. So, we're in the process of trying to get another cruiser. And to give you a little history, our spare cruiser, we call a part-time cruiser, but it's also our cruiser in case we have down equipment for getting repaired, whatever. So when Ed was in here as town manager, we had tried to come up with a presentation, or tried to come up with spacing the cruisers apart by every 2.5 to 3 years, so the taxpayers weren't hit back-to-back consecutively to purchase a car. Because they, unfortunately, when they first started, they were about 38,000, now we're looking at about 45,000 to get a car. Unfortunately, we had our truck get damaged. It was out for over a month to get repaired, and then we put the miles on our newer car. Then when we replaced the truck, unfortunately, the Secret Service brought in a bunch of cars and it was Adamson's, so the car got delayed by 3 months. So we put more miles on the car. That then led us to COVID. So we ordered a car to try to stay ahead of the game, and COVID put the car off by over a year. So our spare car now has 161,000 miles on it, and it needs to have, because it's considered a pursuit vehicle, it's still a police vehicle, we have to maintain it. And it's gonna need to have struts put on it. And it needs a couple of other work, so we're looking at about $2,500 in repairs that are gonna have to go into this car. The car that Ryan currently has, which will be put into our part-time car, it has 100,000 miles on it approximately. It's got 98,000, so it's got about 100,000 miles on it. We generally try to start looking around 100,000 miles to get rid of the car, knowing that by the time we get it, the car's gonna be out of warranty, so everything we have to do, we have to pay for. They're covered 100,000 miles. Unfortunately, when we started calling around to get a car, you can no longer get a cruiser. Dodge stopped producing cars, Ford stopped producing cars. They're telling us in July we can possibly put in a bid for a new car. They won't stop producing until maybe October, November. Depending on where we get on the list, we might get the car next January, February, which will put Ryan's car probably about 120,000 miles. The spare car will probably have about 170 to 175,000 and possibly need a front end and suspension put into it. So I called Dodge in Goss Dodge. They don't have any cars. I called a Mass dealer. I can't remember who they are. They don't have any cars. I called McGee in Springfield. They don't have any cars. So I found a car on the lot over in Claremont. Claremont Dodge Jeep. So it's a Dodge Durango, which we were looking to get an SUV because of the K9. And when they spec'd it out for us, it came up with $37,505 for the car. And that's a pursuit rated Dodge Durango. Did you print this out for them so they have that?
No, I don't see that in there, plus, I'm sorry, Mike, but it also says that Ford has a car right now estimate attached.
I'm sorry, I forgot the estimate.
So Ford, we call Ford, they have a fleet manager, so it's through Claremont Ford, but it's actually the Dodge dealer that has it.
Okay.
So they have Durango on their lot, pursuit rated. I'll give him a copy of this later so you guys can all have it. And it's the same color as the cruiser that we want to get the granite gray. In our car budget, we have just over 25,000. And then the money that we make from the Pike project, we wanted to put into the cruiser fund, which would bring us up to roughly 35,000. And we're guessing we're gonna try to reuse the lights that are on the car that we're getting rid of, because the majority of them are still usable, except for unfortunately the light bar on the windshield because of the contour, we can't use that. And then we do have to buy a cage and some other stuff. We do have somebody interested in donating a K9 cage for us to put in the back of the car, so it saves a little expense. But as I said to Brandon, even with the lights and everything, we're probably looking at another 5,000 to 6,000 to outfit the car. So we're looking roughly around 42,000.
And we're short about 9,500.
We will be correct, yes. And that's assuming we make the 10,000 with Pike, and I think we have 25.5. Is that what was in the cruiser fund when we talked?
25, 25.5.
Yeah, let's say 25. It's 25 and change.
Yeah, and 10 for Pike,
Yes.
about roughly 35. I was just using round numbers.
Yep.
And I used the high number for the upfitting.
Yep.
That got me to 95.05.
And unfortunately, we tried to avoid this, but with COVID and some other things that came into place, it held back
My first question becomes this. Does do the calls out to all of these places, and nobody has a vehicle suffice as, the RFP process that is typically followed? Does that cover that?
What was that again?
The phone calls that Bill has made around and finding out that nobody has a car and they're not gonna get a car, does that satisfy the RFP requirements that are typically you put out an RFP for this, correct?
Yes,
For
you would
cruise?
think so.
Yeah. So does that satisfy the RFP, or do you still have to do an RFP?
It doesn't satisfy the RFP requirement.
Okay, so we'd have to put out an RFP first.
But I think what the chief is saying is then we're at risk of,
Waiting. We're at risk of waiting.
If you look at your purchasing policy, I believe there's a statement in there that says that the select board can waive the bid process at any time. Just applying select board approval. Just saying, it's in the purchasing policy.
Yeah, but I also think it says that you go get 3 bids. I mean,
Right.
there's an issue. There's strings with.
Well, normally we're exempt from the 3 bids because we go off the state bid, but unfortunately, there's no cruisers right now available. So that's how in the past, Vermont goes out and takes the bids for us, so they always give us the cheapest rate we're gonna get. So we've never had to do the RFP before because it's been a state bid.
And this-
Unfortunately, nobody has any cruisers available, and if we wait till July to place the order, generally the next year's model, the price goes up a little, like $1,000, $1,500 is what typically happens. It may not, but that's just the general way it happens. So that's,
Brandon, can you explain the cash flow to us on this, how this is gonna happen? How this is gonna work?
so 25,000 would come from reserves. Obviously, we don't wanna deplete reserves. We're going to be discussing our fund balance soon. I believe Mr. Fuller was in support of moving something to police cruiser reserves from our conversations. I think we could use the Pike Industries net and the 25K from reserves to order the police cruiser.
But you still, well, okay,
And then when we get to the fund balance, we can discuss outfitting the cruiser. And
what's your projected timeline on getting to the, fund balance?
when I talked to you, you said you wanted to wait until the audit was final. So that depends on when the auditors finalize the audit.
No word on that yet.
The first audit's always the most difficult, and they transitioned from Sullivan Powers and they made some changes on the way that they audit the town compared to Sullivan Powers, and they got a late start, so.
And I wrote that down too, because I've got 3 things to talk about. I think that we need to wait for, it doesn't scare me that we won't get a car. It is what it is, but I wanna see the general fund, financial update. And as much as I look at this, for the first time, I probably think that it probably should have been taken up under the budget process for 22-23. So it's a bit of a surprise. And the last thing that I'd say is, when we bought the Dodge car, I'd have to look back at the wording of the article, because I almost think it said to replace a cruiser that we had, because that cruiser had like mileage on it. So all of a sudden, we've turned into 3 cruisers, and I'm not sure where we're all gonna be. And you're right, Brandon, I did wanna talk about combining something, but I don't know what that year-end figure is, so I'd be a little hesitant to jump the gun and to say that we're gonna lean on some Pike money to pay for this, because God forbid Pike change their mind and say the price of asphalt's up a little, or we're not gonna do quite that detail as what was mentioned here. I think that's a tentative thing, and I just heard that it might be a little bit less. So my closing comment would be, I'm not sure that we should be counting on first of all, Pike's not gonna pay you until a while, so I wouldn't necessarily count on that money until the check was in the bank. Guess I'm done.
Paul?
I totally understand the fact that it's hard finding vehicles right now. I mean, I get that. I'm a little bit with Dave on the fact that I'm surprised. I mean, did I miss it? Have we talked about this before?
No, so back a couple of years ago, what we tried to do was take money from the fund and put into a cruiser account so we wouldn't have to go to the taxpayers. So that's how we purchased the Durango, not the Durango, I'm sorry, the Charger. But then we had to deplete money out of that to outfit it. So that ended up costing, I think, $9,000. So it went from like 34,000 down to 25. So we didn't foresee that part of it. So we were gonna try to buy the car, you know, through the funds that we already had. It just got depleted.
We did transfer though money from
We
the
did.
previous year's fund balance from
Yep.
the general fund, and we did it to the fire departments and everything. I'd like to take up that discussion, but we don't quite have those numbers yet.
Right.
I think it's measurable, so, I mean, maybe the board can take it up at the time, but I think it's a little premature. I don't know, when do you think it's gonna come? A month? I'm not opposed to listening to this again, but I certainly can't make a decision tonight, for me.
First, how long do you think we have on this car?
We told them we'd get to them tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be sold because there's no cars available.
Yeah. Fund balance discussion, next meeting at the earliest?
I mean, we can go through, we'll certainly have a financial report for the next meeting. The auditors when they presented the audit, it didn't sound like anything was gonna change,
No, it didn't.
so,
I understand that.
I don't know if we really need to wait until the final audit, because they've already confirmed the numbers for the draft audit. The final audit will just have technicalities for the management report and recommendations for us to do with our internal controls.
Yeah, but the important thing is what Dave's talking about is those fund balances and how we're gonna deal with those.
Yes.
Well, and then, you don't wanna leave somebody out, so I don't know what the other needs are or what the other talk might be I mean, the last time I spoken with you, it was significant.
It's still,
Gen-
it's the
general
same number.
Okay, so, but I don't know what, I think we were going to, well, I know we were going to try, when we formulate the tax bill, to see where that's gonna set off, that's one. Then that will be in June, and number two would be anything, because we kind of had the budget discussion about what was gonna go maybe into fire, because we didn't put any article for fire in this year's, didn't we put a penny in for highway, Ray? I think,
I believe you guys had asked for one, yes.
no, that got voted on in March. So the reason why we didn't put fire on was because we were gonna kind of disperse these things evenly, whatever was gonna happen. If we need to make a decision by tomorrow, I can't do that on this particular car.
Paul, did you have something?
Well, I was questioning are we deciding whether we wanna buy the cruiser or where the money's coming from? Like, I totally understand the fact of the mileage on these things and where they're at. I don't necessarily have a problem with us finding and getting a cruiser. The problem that I have, along with what Dave was saying, is just where the money's coming from right this minute.
Well, I don't like spending money if I don't know where it is.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting at, and it's hard because, like, honestly, I feel a little pressured that, like, oh, we gotta find something tonight, but.
And we did just pass the budget, we passed the general fund.
Well,
So we did go through all that, so it's a little, I mean, here it is, April 4th, and then the voters voted
So-
1 month ago.
It's not, for me, it's not about getting a car, it's about where the money's gonna come from.
which I'm,
Which, they go hand in hand, but I'm just saying,
but
I
we
want them
don't
to
have
have
those
what he needs.
financials in front of us
I know that,
at this point to
I know that.
go through that, other than just accepting what the auditors gave us for numbers. And also just an overall discussion, as Dave is pointing out, about what is going to happen with those funds. Just because we have this lump set of fund balances, there's some targets that we wanna hit, and we know that. And so what do we actually have that's available? When and where?
I'll put it together for the next meeting.
I think that's really the best we can do.
Yeah, let me touch
At this
base
point,
with
we've
Steve.
gotta know where the money's coming from.
Yep.
Before we commit to spend it. That's how I feel. Kelly?
I agree. We have to find out where all the money is before we can purchase something.
Well, they're gonna expect, to be paid if you put something in,
Yeah.
same as the fire truck
Yes.
or the highway truck. I mean, when something is delivered or whatever, you gotta order, and that's it. So,
Wendy? Anything?
We're talking about like $18,000 between what we have in
yeah,
reserve.
but that's draining the other bank account.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm not up with that. So I just wanna see the package. So that means that we're completely we're draining the reserve account for this and coming up with 18. I'd rather,
And we're a year out from being able to, put more- other than using more fund balances to replenish the car account.
or another car, or something that comes up as far as whatever happens to come up in that.
You know, so we have two cars that are primary cars.
Yes.
Right? And one of those is at roughly 90,000 now?
No, roughly 100,000.
Roughly 100, okay. Well, that's actually what I wrote down was 100. That car will make it another year? I
In
mean,
theory, maybe. I mean, I don't know.
well, we look at the other one that's over here that's gonna be pushing on 100.
Oh, 160, and that one needs work
160,
to it.
170, and that one's hurting, yeah.
Yeah.
How much have we put into that since it hit 100,000? Have we spent a lot of money on it since it hit 100,000?
Probably 3,500, 4,000. We had to put an exhaust in it, some tie rods in it, stuff like that.
And in comparison between the two vehicles, when we look at this one's good, this one's good, that one sucks. You know, are we dealing with comparable type of vehicles, value-wise, or
Between our three cruisers?
yeah, between the 100,000 and the 160,000 mile.
The one that's
cruiser.
150 is starting to rust out on the tailgate, and then it needs a new suspension.
Yeah, but as it was manufactured, if they were, I mean, what was the quality of that car as a manufactured?
It's the same exact. They're both the same cars. They're both 2016 Ford Explorers.
Okay, so we're probably, if we had to go another year, and I'm just saying that, if we had to go another year, we probably gonna be okay. That just suggests to me that we don't necessarily have to make a decision tonight on this. But definitely get these numbers together, and if the car's still around, or we'll have to start searching somewhere else for it.
Well, we'll just wait until July to place the order.
Any of the numbers that you assembled, do they assume like we did, like at the highway or whatever, where these things have all these complications and their warranty, the number is included in that?
I'm sorry?
Do any of the numbers that you or Brandon assemble for us to look at, are they included with like warranties and everything? Because all these motors and everything have changed.
Yeah, so both the Fords are done at 100,000 miles. So that's.
So they're over, but I'm talking about like the new one, the
The
numbers.
Durango McGee is giving us the warranty for the engine.
So it's included in the number that we're talking about?
For my car it is. I don't know about this Durango because it's not through McGee, it's through another dealership.
Okay, can you make sure you find that out, cause the
Yeah.
complete number would be, wait a minute.
I think when we did it with Ford, it was an extra $1,800
Yeah,
for
but
the warranty.
It's a number that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I just don't like all the complicated motors, if you listen to the garages right now. Like 5 years, whatever, I don't know what, but it's worth the money when you buy them just like any other.
So, Brandon, you're gonna get some numbers together for us on this for the.
Yeah, I'll have
is that-
everything prepared for the meeting on April 18th.
And, I mean, if it's around, we'll take a shot at it. If not, we'll have to move on, I guess.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you, Bill.
Yep. Thanks.
Small grants discussion.
So for the small business grant that the select board authorized initially for the second round, it was a $20,000, up to $20,000 and $2,000 grants for small businesses. We had 6 applicants, and I still feel like not everybody that would be eligible applied. However, only 4 of those are funded because 2 did not meet the submission requirements. One was a daycare center, and I believe that the submission requirements can be met, but the notice for the grant was very specific. So the team, the grant review team, and I decided not to recommend them for funding, based on the language. We didn't have any wiggle room. So what I'm asking is to establish a third. We've had calls, obviously, especially from the people that applied, looking for another opportunity. So we're looking for a third round of small business grants. We've spent 8 of the 20,000 that was designated. So we're looking for 12,000 to use that 12,000 and reopen a third round. That's basically what we're looking for.
So you had the 2 people that didn't qualify call again saying we want another bite at the apple.
Well, they qualified, but they didn't meet the submission requirements. One didn't provide their tax return, another didn't sign the application.
I had a conversation with Brandon about this, and I looked at it this way. As I had applied for this, because I needed to. And I'm sure that anybody else that applied for it needed to as well. And if they qualified, but they didn't, they screwed up the application in somehow, let's help them get this thing corrected and get them through it, and help them. I also believe the way Brandon is phrasing this, to do a third round, if you're gonna do a third round, I was granted in this round. I was granted in the first round, I was granted in this round. Anybody that submitted in this previous round of the 20,000 that we just did should not be allowed to submit another application. This is more to reach out to anybody that didn't get one in, and let's reach out to those that did submit one and they just didn't get it right. Let's help them get it right, and let's get them helped out. That's the conversation I had with Brandon. How does the rest of the board feel about that?
I'm fine with that.
And others that I expected to fill out applications did not. So I don't know if we got the word out enough or if people had trouble with the application. So I just want to push that notice out more and let everybody know that they can come to the town office and we can help them with the application if they need it.
So you need a motion.
You don't think that happened though, the other round? I mean, I think we did. I think we did, and I don't oppose doing this, but I think we did offer assistance. And
We did.
I think we were pretty explicit about saying, hey, if you got any questions, come in the office, we'll help you. Hello? I mean, if you didn't sign the application, that's a little rough.
I'm trying to think of some really great warning label on something, you know? Yeah, it's pretty obvious, you know, don't drink the battery acid.
I'm just saying, he just said the reasons of why they would, somebody didn't provide the tax return or something, and somebody didn't sign it.
Yeah, I think
I don't
it's not,
I don't know.
There were simple things, but
right, it's,
the rules were the rules.
What is it that you're looking for then, that we have a third round that totals 12,000, is that what it is, how we read that?
12,000
But not to include the previous.
Previous applicants.
The previous 4 that were just
Yes,
awarded should
Yeah.
not be allowed to submit.
With the date of applications will be due by April 31st. And then the select board will review them on May 4th.
How much money is, that has been spent on small business grants then in total in the 2 rounds?
In the 2 rounds, we've spent
I think it was 6,000 the first time, wasn't it, Brandon?
10,000, 18,000 total.
It's gone?
Okay, yeah.
It's gone?
Well, the first round was like in the beginning of
Like
COVID.
over a year ago.
I know,
So
but I just wanna know what's going.
Yep. We spent 10,000 then, and we just spent $8,000, and there's 12,000 left from the 20,000 authorized.
That was, what was authorized on the first round? 10? So 30,000 total.
If it all goes.
For the 2 rounds, 30,000 total, and 18's been spent so far.
There you go. Yep.
I knew I majored in math.
You're a major, all right.
I always thought I was a minor. Yeah.
So do we hear a motion for this?
So I'll make a motion that we open up a third round of grants for small business affected by COVID, not to include the 4 recipients from a month ago there, totaling $12,000, with each grant being $2,000. Then the application will open on April 5th. They will be due in by the 31st and reviewed by us on the 4th of May.
The previous grants, the previous 4 grant recipients were on the 21st. They were the minutes.
Okay. On the, so the
March
4 from the March 24th,
21st.
21st.
Should we call it a third round or just a continuation of round 2?
That may make sense too. Yeah.
Cause it makes it sound like you're doing a whole new round
So-
where we're just continuing what we
And
did.
it also
Yeah,
makes
and then
it
we're
clear that-
excluding people. Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't wanna do that.
No, sorry, so I will rephrase that to a continuation from the second round of small business grants.
And that would preclude anybody that received it that first time from,
Because it's already there, but
okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to continue the second round of COVID-19 grants, small business grant funding. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. I can vote on that one.
Ooh. Yeah, you voted. Yeah, but you're an exclusion.
I know, I am.
You're out.
That's right, I am. All right, let's do this. We are past 8:30. Anybody have a real big hankering to go through select board and town manager goals?
No.
sorry.
Okay, let's move those. Proposed future agenda items. What did we come up with tonight so far, Brandon?
Fund, so what I have for action is finance report, April 18th, fund balance, April 18th, minutes, clarification of minutes for April 18th. A solar project news article. And that's all I've got.
Anything else?
Can we get
Go ahead, Kel.
I'd like to see an ARPA fund balance and use sheet.
Okay.
I think every time we use it, we should see what we start with and what gets used, so we know what's left each time.
That's a good point.
I was just gonna say that, David asked for a discussion on some of that, stuff with, I'm not sure 100% of the definition of it, but in case of a town manager not available, so I don't know where we left
Well,
off on that.
I think it's more clarification of policy. Is that correct, Dave, as far as?
I don't think policy can handle it. So,
Well, it's, yeah.
I wrote the notes to you before. You got a whole Bible.
Yeah, I do. Is that on the piece of paper or the email
I'll
or
let
the
you-
third email?
I'll let you think about it.
Okay, I'll go dig them up. So helpful. Okay, so, let me see, this had to do with the town manager, appointment. I'm only using that to get me pointed in the right direction.
That's something else too. I don't know if we wanna do it under other business or if we wanna discuss it the next one. I think someone on the select board needs to still be part of the emergency management team. As you never know from one day to the next what's gonna happen. I know the school does it on a regular basis and so doesn't
Have you seen how this works around here?
No.
I think it's a great idea. I nominate you.
I'm sorry.
No, actually, we should have told, we were in the BCA meeting and we had the perfect chance to tell John that he was not, he got elected to do something, right?
Yeah, emergency management.
Yeah.
No, on the Board of Abatement meeting.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
yeah, no, he's a secretary.
And he was told that.
Oh, he already notified him?
Yeah, I told him, I had to tell him.
He wasn't,
I'm just kidding.
he wasn't there. He wasn't
Unless you want to do it.
No, I don't wanna do it, I just think that someone from the board should be on it that knows more about what's going on in the town.
Actually, let me see, somebody contacted me about, an individual that had actually put his name in before and is FEMA certified and yada, yada, yada. It's been through all the classes and training to do
On the
it.
board,
Not on this board. But they are a resident of the town.
Yeah.
And they are involved in
But they're looking for emergency management, correct?
emergency management, yeah. It's Roderick Bates. But, I mean,
He called you?
no, he didn't call me.
Oh.
I forget who told me. Somebody told me. Might have been Brandon.
well, the
Was it
paper
Brandon's?
here said that it expired
Yeah,
on March 4th here, I got from last year when I first started.
yeah, go ahead.
Myself personally, I would expect something of that nature, probably be the board, the chair of the board to work with the emergency management coordinator for any emergencies or things that happen. That's my thought, not necessarily, just because the chair would be more privy to any of the
Yeah,
stuff that was going on. I'm not trying to say that you have to, but I don't know how that's set up either. I don't know what the
I'll
group's
do
made
it
of.
because in general, it's not, I mean, I don't have a problem doing it. If Brandon appoints this position, I don't have a problem doing it.
But you
know.
feel free to, if you want somebody else. I know what is it made up of the police, the
I already
the
told
fire.
him if something happens, I'm calling him anyway.
Well, I mean,
Oh, it's the fire chiefs and the police and
Yeah, I know.
ambulance, school.
But-
We
but-
actually had a good meeting down here one time.
once.
Yeah, no, it really was. No, yeah, I
I
know.
believe in using my resources, and Dave's an excellent resource.
Oh,
He has a
absolutely.
great, immense amount of knowledge about a lot of things here. So,
I was just
be
thinking
one of
that,
the first
because
I'd reach out to if I did it anyway. Just
when that person needs to, like, let's say, like Dave was saying, spend some money, do whatever, like, that, the chair would kind of be in that.
One of the problems with making a decision is you get, and Brandon will know what I'm talking about here, you open yourself up to immense criticism. So, when you say something, then, Ray, you probably know this too, like tomorrow morning, somebody will say, what'd you do that for?
No, never.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, it happens all the time in a small town. I know. Yeah, what else is new, right? So you always get that share of doubt, and then you just gotta move on and think that you did the right thing. So,
Again, you reach out, you use your resources, and you put together a plan, and you do what you think is right, and you're right. Somebody's always gonna be second guessing.
to address what Kelly had to say, in any big thing that's ever happened here in town, generally speaking, we have a meeting. We'd have a board meeting. I mean, if some disaster happened, that's what's happened.
like,
Brandon,
so I did put together a process for the next EMD, and what we plan to do is hold another meeting downstairs here, a meeting similar to what Dave was talking about. I'd like to get back to having those regularly, because they really were good. And to come up with a description and then advertise to give all opportunity. And then for those letters of interest to then be reviewed by the Weathersfield Emergency Management Team as a whole, and for a recommendation to then be given to me. So that was the process that I had put in place. What do you think about that process?
Well, one of the things that I learned for 2 years was you really want to, I don't know about that, but, you're talking about pedigree and okay, what documents do you have to prove yourself? I found that to be less valuable. What really was valuable is when you have something that needs to be done, and you have those people that do it, and they're supposed to do it, that they stay in the lane and they do it. That's kind of a big deal. So if it's a fire issue, you don't tell anybody how to fight fires. That's what they're trained for. If it's Golden Cross's job, that's their job. So you don't go around like pecking on them, and that, all that kind of thing, makes more problems. So, not gonna be anybody that's more qualified, or you went to school. Books are great. They're not, I learned this about you guys had the thing about the West Side's license for, healthcare on the side. I learned a bunch. I talked to 2 doctors in town. They said, that's good, but here's one of the problems with that. The frequency, well, first of all, books in schools are great, just like the EMD. But that's not the real life happening of what you're gonna have to deal with, because you're not in a classroom. You have an event that happens. So how frequently are you doing that event that's just happened? So that's what they told me about that.
Ray?
We're still on, future.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have something, but I don't know if it goes on that or goes on just topics not on the agenda.
Go ahead.
I have a, resident that's requesting a streetlight. They're willing to pay for it all themselves. The only recommendation I would have is to have it somehow put in their deed, so if they sell their house, it's in their deed that they're paying for this streetlight. They're gonna do all the installation cost and all the monthly costs.
Did you review the zoning bylaws on that?
I have no idea. I'm just asking the board.
There's
recommendation.
there's a lot in zoning on that, on lighting.
That's fine.
That the first thing they need to do is go talk to, Ryan Gumbart, zoning administrator.
That's why I brought it here.
Yeah, because they've got to, street lamps in Weathersfield, depends on, I mean, I could think of a couple places I'd support one, but.
It depends on the lumens, and then, you know, the night and whatever.
I'll just tell them to go to see Ryan then.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on, other future agenda items? Anybody?
I would, if anybody has any comments about the emergency management director, just send me an email or give me a phone call and we can chat.
Okay.
Or if anybody's interested.
Appointments? Appointments, Animal Control Officer Kathy Sullivan. Parks and Rec Commission.
I just heard Kelly start laughing.
I was gonna say, are we gonna table that one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that the board wants to take these up separately tonight. Animal Control Officer Kathy Sullivan, do I hear a nomination? Hearing none.
I make a motion that we appoint Kathy Sullivan for 30 days, because we can't have a hole.
Yes.
We can't have a hole. We had a concern by Bill, we have concerns, but we can't have an empty.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Kathy Sullivan as the Animal Control Officer for 30 days.
Maybe I shouldn't say 30. What do you think, Mr. Chair?
But does she get the full $500 if
No,
she does
I'm
30
talking about
days?
meetings. I'm talking about process of thinking. What do you think? What do you guys think?
Say 90.
Yeah, we gotta have something. I threw out 30, but I'm wrong. I'm not
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it's gonna take some time to find
90.
somebody.
Someone
90?
else, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so the motion is amended
3
to
months.
90. Seconds okay with that? Okay, 90 days, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Kathy Sullivan, Animal Control Officer for 90 days, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Budget Committee has 4 vacancies. We need a Connecticut River Joint Commission representative, Constable Energy Coordinator, Fence Viewer. Parks and Rec Commission, 5 vacancies, but Ray Stapleton and Olivia Savage have put in their names to be on Parks and Rec Commission.
I make a motion that we accept Ray Stapleton and Olivia Savage's to the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Do I hear a second?
It's late.
Second.
Kelly seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And zoning board of adjustment apparently has an opening or two. It doesn't say how many.
Roderick Bates did put in his name for fence viewer. So
Fence viewer?
on the next agenda, I'll have him
Okay.
for
Thank
fence
you.
viewer.
Yep. Approve the warrants. Paul?
Sure. So I approve, I make a motion.
I approve the warrants.
For April 4th, 2022.
Aye.
Yeah, general fund payroll is $14,319.20, operating expenses $37,313.17. Highway fund payroll $8,217.34, operating expenses $15,657.04. Solid waste management payroll is $1,632.65, operating expense $67.08. Library payroll is $2,003.34 and zero operating expense, for a grand total of payroll $26,172.53 and operating expense of $53,037.29.
Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Dave has seconded. Motion to approve the warrants. Dated of the meeting of April the 4th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any other business can be legally conducted while assembled?
I have a quick comment I wanted to make, I wanted to let the board know that Brandon, has, made a meeting for the solid waste, group that we have, the three towns. And he asked me to attend that with him, since I was the solid waste representative, and we're just continuing to make sure that we wanna get everything signed, and now that, you know, the town meetings are over and everything, so I'm planning on going that with Brandon. I just wanna let everybody know. If there's anything different, you're welcome to change that or do whatever you want.
We never did appoint some of those positions at the board, did we?
No.
Brandon? Okay, gather that list for the next meeting, let's talk about that. In the meantime, yes?
Yeah.
Continue.
Thank you.
I'm fine with that.
I didn't wanna overstep, I just said,
Ray?
The rec department is putting on a fishing derby. The date is tentatively the day before Father's Day, Saturday. I'll get you more details, but I just wanted to get it out there.
Saturday before Father's Day? That's Spike Week.
For the Father's Day weekend.
Spike Week. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Kelly and
Aye.
Paul?